Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So welcome to another edition of our Who Am I series. And as always, we begin in the name of Allah and we ask Allah for his Rahman, and we ask Allah for his guidance in this evening session so that we may achieve some of our objectives on continuing our conversation on who am I. This evening, we have two very special guests, one of who is no stranger to the platform, actually, and the other is a first-timer speaker. So I will begin with introducing our speaker, our guest speaker, I would say then, Brother Daurius Figueira, who I will read a short bio from him, right? He's a researcher and writer specializing in the following areas: the illicit trades of the Caribbean, namely the illicit drug trade, illicit gun trade, and human smuggling, also Islamic extremism, the geopolitics of LNG in Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. He's also interested in the race and the politics of Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. Daurius has to date published 3 books: one, The Caribbean Illicit Trades, books on Islamic extremism, one on geopolitics of LNG, containing a deconstruction of the discourse, and other on politics of race, and one on Uriah Butler and Kwame Nkrumah. He is at present working on an analysis of the post-caliphate worldview, discourse of the Islamic State, and an examination of the state of power relations in North Atlantic. That is the US, Canada, and Europe, with focus on the resurgence and growing political strength in the guise of right-wing populist movements across the study region and their interaction with the existing power structures of the nation states. So it's indeed a pleasure to have Brother Daurius with us. And also with us this evening is none other than Akinola Sennon, who is actually the executive director at the Institute for Life. He is a very active community leader, cultural activist. He's the executive director of the Deltones Institute of Steel Drums and Music. He's the general manager of PAL Let's Billet, and a board member at our very international YFAM organization. So alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure to have both brothers with us this evening to have a conversation as we continue to take an in-depth look into where we were, where we are, and where we are journeying to. Right? So without further ado, I just want to play, before inviting them to speak, I just want to share our video that sort of gives a little introduction into, or sets up the pace for this evening, inshallah. Right. All right. Right, and for those of you who may not be aware, the music that was playing in the background of the video there is actually from one of a track from Akinola's album, Kusume, album of the Deltons Institute that Akinola and the team produced, inshallah. So you all can check it out as well online. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Akinola, and he will continue the discussion with Brother Daurius, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum, one and all. Welcome to the Who Am I platform. Welcome, Elder Brother Daurius. I'm also seeing our Elder beloved Maulana Hassan Abduli online as well. Welcome. This evening, we want to explore the idea of who am I from a specific kind of angle, that speaks to that, I would say, social or socio-economic sometimes issue around revolution and criminology, so to deem it as. And I'd like to start from this place, before bringing our dearly beloved Brother Daurius on to respond to this trend of thought. And most certainly, over the last couple centuries, 4 centuries to be exact, the African man specifically, other peoples of the world too, but the African man was made to undergo some conditions that were of the worst, They were of the worst conditions that any collective grouping of people, could have or did ever experience throughout the passage of time, throughout global history. As a people, we were dehumanized. Our culture was stripped from us, and we were dehumanized. We were denied our basic human rights, not even civil rights. Our actual human rights. I remember our dearly beloved elder, mentor, Brother Malcolm X, saying at one point in time, pointing towards, that as a people, we should be trying to regain human rights, even before doing to the idea of civil rights. Because if you do not even have that which is human rights, what you even do with civil rights, because you're not human as yet. And the situation was that and is that bad. So to continue with the discourse, we had to fight. Yeah, we had to fight every step of the way. We had to fight. We had to fight. We had to fight. We had to fight to protect women. We had to fight to protect children. We had to fight to protect our mere human identity. We had to fight to protect our name. We had to fight to protect our religion. Everything for us, throughout this entire 4-century period, engaged fighting. And this fight took on many different expressions throughout this experience which is slavery. Now, human study would show that DNA memory is a real and living thing. What is DNA memory? Most of us would know. For those who need a quick idea on it, DNA memory speaks to that scientific process that causes a trait or or experience to live on with a latter generation that wasn't really part of that experience that actually caused this particular thing. You know, DNA memory is that thing that transports a memory, you know, from one generation to the other. So with this idea of DNA memory, we can safely say that, you know, many of which is the African man, you know, coming from that experience of having to fight all the time, you know, would adopt this type of trait as well. So to put my first trend of thought, or question rather, on rap, can we say that this spirit of revolution, this spirit of rebelliousness, this spirit of fighting, if not managed, or also if not, isn't, or if does not have at its foundation a knowledge of self, an awareness of self, an appreciation of self, this thing, which is an excellent trait, if mismanaged and not have as a knowledge of self, can it go into a whole state of disorganization and end up resulting in criminal type behavior, as opposed to something that is honorable and is and speaks to the obedience of Allah and speaks to the service of humanity? If mismanaged, and if it does not have that in-depth knowledge of self to it, could it be that this could morph or transcend and become that of criminal behavior? Over to you, Brother Daurius. What are your thoughts and feelings?
Thank you. First, we have to focus on the white supremacist order of power that used enslavement and colonization as instruments of power, which demanded a multifaceted assault on non-white races. So you don't only have to dehumanize them by insisting to us that we are inferior, but you also have to render us docile, pliant, because you need us to work for you to generate wealth. And furthermore, you need instruments of power to control us. So what we have to understand, coming out of this white supremacist colonial order in the Caribbean, Africans and mixed race people who were the byproduct of this order were exposed to and became victims of a spectrum of trauma that exists up to today, because in 31st August 1962 and thereafter, the political order did not set about the task of decolonizing our society. And what to understand, it is a multifaceted assault on all of us. So they want you to inculcate at the level of the idea our inferiority and to act upon it. They want us to be docile and pliant. And one of the instruments they use to render us docile is to criminalize the race. So you insist to us that we are criminogenic. We have a propensity for criminal activity. And that is what they are doing to the African race today in Trinidad and Tobago by continually insisting that the living embodiment of a criminal in Trinidad and Tobago today is a young urban African male in a three-quarter pants, slippers, and a sleeveless vest or merino from my time. That is what you call criminalization. And you base criminalization upon marginalized spaces where these races live. What we must understand that it is in the post-emancipation history of the Caribbean, the white supremacist order created marginalized spaces for criminalized Africans and mixed race people to reside in. And you will police these spaces, and you will fill your courts and your remand yard and your prison with people from these spaces. And the persons who will be hired by the state to police these spaces also come from these spaces. And this entire structure is working at the level of the idea to insist to you that you are simply a worthless criminal. So therefore the question arises, every time these marginalized races exert resistance, it is criminalized. So every political expression of resistance is criminalized. And then the entire criminalization and the marginalization of these spaces got worse. It intensified in the Caribbean with the coming of the illicit trades and the gun trade and the bloodbath that ensued in these marginal spaces with gangland, and you are killing each other for no discernible benefit, to the benefit of the minority races who dominate the oligarchy of these Caribbean states. In Trinidad and Tobago today, there is not a single African or an African family who is a member of the Trinidad and Tobago oligarchy. The last African family who was in the oligarchy of Trinidad and Tobago, the state now owns everything they had. It is in the hands of the state. And the other groups are waiting to pick the carcass bear. So that is how it operates. So independence came, but all we got was neo-colonial domination, because the white order of power, the white supremacist order of power, was never challenged. The spectrum of trauma we walk around with heightened. And that is why today we have members of our races bleaching their skin.
Okay, so from your discourse thus far, what I'm really getting is that a lot of it, or a grand percentage of it, speaks to a social engineering from a higher authority, a social engineering that we seem to be fulfilling or fitting ourselves nicely into this socially engineered script. Which brings about other thing, because I think statistics has proven that even, because you mentioned the criminal justice system and the prison system, you pointed towards that being part of this social engineering. Now, statistics would show that, a lot of offenders, presently today, even in the system presently today, are repeated offenders. So can you expound, a bit more from your research as to the role and function that the prison system plays in this socially engineered society?
In the white order of power, a prison is a warehouse. So you don't imprison people in order to change their behavior, to reintegrate them into society. The prison is a social order in itself that socializes inmates into the prison order of life, which does not enable them to fit into the wider external social order. So that is why when you leave, you go back. So it is a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that once imprisoned, you have a predisposition to come back. So it is simply a means by which you use the law, the courts, and the prison as social control. And you focus upon marginalized spaces with marginalized races in those spaces. So they want to tell us now in Trinidad and Tobago that people from those spaces have a propensity for criminality. But the fact of the matter is, one set does the crime and ends up doing the time, and people outside of those spaces do crime and never do time. So people outside of those spaces, especially the ethnic minorities, they are angels. Look carefully, you see halo and wings. That is what they're telling us. So it has nothing to do with justice. It's a social control. So that is why in Trinidad and Tobago, since in the decade, the first 5 years of the 21st century, they pick up the talk about restorative justice in the prison system and things like that. And it cannot go nowhere because remember, we have politicians in Trinidad and Tobago stand up and say that jail and make the right fig.
No. In the history of Al-Islam, I can recall a specific point where our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, actually made dua, for two figures to be strengthened, to be used, to be strengthened, to strengthen the system that is Islam. Two of these, and it is reported to have said that his dua was answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was granted Omar, may Allah be pleased with him. And Omar, evolved to become one of the earth's most just, righteous, balanced, you name it, pious, God-fearing individuals that has ever walked this earth. And it is impossible to speak of that which is the development of Al-Islam as a structure and not mention him, and his leadership, even as the caliph of our entire existence as a system to deem it. So where am I going? I'm saying that this which is Al-Islam has, the system that is Al-Islam has successfully been able to rehabilitate men that came from, certain sectors of the society that the way they could not even be deemed as criminals. I mean, I spoke of Malcolm X prior as well, and similar level of transformation or shift what took place with the adaptation of that which is Al-Islam. Now, where am I going? You know, two things. What are your thoughts regards the very high likely spread of Al-Islam in the prison system, which seems to be something that happens widely all over the world. There seems to be a high acceptance of the dawah that is Islam in the prison system, one, but also two, your thoughts about him who is the Muslim, at least the one that professes Islam, and this Islam did not cause that transformational process, and in some cases a criminal approach to life, you know, bear continuity. What are your thoughts?
Well, my brother and the audience, what we must understand is the depth of resistance that exists between white supremacy and the white order of power and Quranic discourse, Islam. They are totally irreconcilable. And there is a grave always through time, you read through history, there has always been a grave paranoia in the North Atlantic over Islam, over Quranic discourse, because they view Islam as an inherent enemy of their worldview, because it is an alternate worldview to the white world order. They are inherently contradictory to each other. There is in fact no compromise. The only Muslims who can compromise with the white world order and white supremacist discourse are the munafiqun of Islam. It's as simple as that. So what has happened? The first time in my life I read some of the major thinkers of West Indian slavery, and they are describing the African and the desirable Africans to purchase for enslavement. They would start off, they made a list. They started off the list with the Mandingo. That is the Muslim Africans. They say don't ever buy a Mandingo off the slave block. He said you're going to meet somebody who is highly likely to be literate in Arabic, to be highly skilled in mathematics, who will quickly learn to read and write English, who will be brighter than you in doing your accounts for your estate, and who will refuse until they die enslavement. Who will refuse until they die enslavement. They will never surrender.
So
What made that Mandingo, what system of thought made that Mandingo so threatening to Massa? Islam. Islam was the difference. They said don't ever, and then they described Muslim enslaved people that they met through their life on the plantations in Jamaica. And they had to describe them with great honor and respect because of their refusal to bend their knee and their brilliance.
So definitely a major tool or weapon used in this, the social engineering of this society would be that which is the educational system at large. Because,
Yes.
because our curriculum in itself that our children are being exposed to isn't a curriculum that exposes our youth to that which is proper heritage, legacy, and history. Our youth and definitely are not being taught, this type of discourse. So what are your views, from a more in-depth perspective on the role as well that the educational system plays in this marginalization that you're pointing towards, this criminalization that you're pointing towards, and the intention to keep our people at the bottom of that ladder, or not even on the ladder at all, in the structure of the society.
In order to render a race servile, and you have to have that race accepting and internalizing inferiority. So therefore, the first line of attack is at the level of the idea. And this is why Islam is looked upon as a grave threat, because Islam comes with an entirely different body of ideas. That is what happened to Malcolm when he went to Hajj. And the expanse of Islam cuts across all race divisions, all class divisions in the Hajj. That rocked Malcolm to the very core of his worldview. And that is the threat Islam poses, and that is why you have to continue to make war on Islam.
Okay.
So what has to happen is that you develop a body of ideas that must, across time up to 2021, continue to feed us a form of our history that renders us servile. So for example, let me give you a potent example. In our history books at secondary level, they tell us about Daddy Sharp rebellion in 1832 in Jamaica, which was in fact the rebellion that convinced the British House of Commons in 1833 to pass the Emancipation Bill. What they will never tell you is that Daddy Sharp was a Mandingo. And Daddy Sharp retained his faith in Islam to the end because they hanged him for the rebellion. He passed himself off as a Baptist preacher, but he continued to recite his Quran from memory.
So if I'm to stick a pin right here, because even the same situation we kind of saw in Haiti to some degree with that which is Bookman.
Yes.
I mean, I know for sure Alhamdulillah that our beloved brother Bookman was Muslim, but there seems to be some sort of conspiracy theory that points Bookman to otherwise. And they try to label him as all kind of other things that is not al-Islam. What are your thoughts in terms of is it a mischievous something to to take away the Muslim following of these some of these great revolutionaries and pioneers in the Caribbean, or is it just mere lack of knowledge and understanding of historical happenings?
But the history is really his story. And in a white order of power, it's his white boy story. So you have to silence the Muslim input into liberation. So you have to insist that Bookman was a maroon, and that's what's in and stories. And you have to silence the same reality that went on with the rebellion in Suriname. Because you have to continue to push a form of history that will conform to having people who are servile, comfortable in their servility, as Fanon says, people who are immersed in hallucinatory whiteness has to be continuously affirmed that it's working for them as they put on the skin bleaching cream. So what we have to understand is that Islam is always viewed in a paranoid manner from the beginning of our history to the present. Therefore, you have to understand the games that are afoot. So from the colonial era, with the coming of the Indian indentures and Muslims among them, the game with Islam recommenced, and it continues up to today. So that is why the game was to divide Islam on the basis of race in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. That is the old colonial, neo-colonial master game. You have to divide Islam on the basis of race.
I mean, to kind of, I would say use a social observation that I've made as well. I mean, not necessarily in this case with, that which is the Muslim, but I want to take up a community in Trinidad and Tobago that, has contributed so much towards civil and human rights, not only in Trinidad, but influence, to me, many parts of the region and the entire West. I want to take the community of Faizabad, where, the powerful revolutionary figure, though not Muslim, Uriah Buzz Butler, arose his entire movement from. And outside of Uriah Buzz Butler, there is so many other, I would say, revolutionary expressions that took place in Faizabad. And these expressions all definitely pointed towards the upliftment of the man, the upliftment of space to equal rights and justice, to political fairness. All these expressions took on that kind of, spirited. And, Faizabad, I mean, the revolutionaries that came out of that area, or that specific little community in the southwest of Trinidad and Tobago, are so many. You know, I actually live in Faizabad, so now I want to point towards Faizabad. But today you would see a very serious non-existence of that kind of identity holistically. You're coming from championing, a cause that was so deep that it influenced the rest of the country, and it even had influence throughout the region and throughout the entire hemisphere. What are your thoughts and experiences you would like to share? You know, because I'm pretty sure there are many other communities that had such a deep heritage, you know, where humanitarianism is concerned, to where the revolutionary spirit is concerned. And to date, you know, has turned into a place, you know, riddled with poverty, riddled with low education, riddled with, you know, hate against self from many different angles, you know, but filled with drugs and filled with alcoholism. What are your thoughts from a community going from that place to that place? Is it a natural progression? Do you think it was also the results of engineering? Give me, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings on communities like that? I mean, though I highlighted Faizabad, I know of many others as well.
In my work on Cuba Uriah Buzz Butler, you must experience Faizabad. So in the assault on the colonial domination of Trinidad and Tobago, led by Cuba Butler, Butler paid a grave personal price for his assault on colonial power. And Faizabad paid that price too. But they continued taking on the colonial master. The change came when they told us we were now free. And that is when the politics of race was unleashed on this country, that divided the people who once stood together, taking on the colonial master now, turned out to watch each other as enemies, and they became mortally divided for the benefit of massa. So the entire cohesive movement that Butler was leading, going up against colonial domination from the 1930s into the 1950s, simply shattered into race-based politics going into 62. And that is the malaise now that descended upon this country from then, that literally has now paralyzed us as a people, where the politics and the rule and the governance put on by the elected politicians has no connection to the daily life of the people. So it's like they're living in a bubble.
Which is the thing. Al-Islam as a system presents something that is holistic, where there isn't a disconnection with all these different facets. And all these facets are bounded, all these institutions are bounded and have at its epicenter That's which is Al-Quran, and that which is the Sunnah of our Prophet. So Al-Islam in itself presents a perfect, system, if so to deem it, that stands mighty and powerful, to disrupt, some of these disasters of humanity that we are pointing towards. I think at this time, can we now kind of open up the lines so others from within the platform, can start presenting further questions and that kind of thing? Or I don't know if the moderator, Alpha, wants to kind of come and lead that way. Now that we basically come to that time factor for the first asset of the program.
Yes, all right, mashallah, brothers. Very, very interesting discourse, and the chat have been very lively this evening, where several comments have been being made, and some comments and questions and back and forth, even amongst the participants, which I think is very, very, very good. So I wanna allow our beloved Maulana Hassan, I see his hand is raised, so I'll allow him to have the first question / comment, and then I have some other questions in my inbox that I would then throw out, inshallah. So Maulana Hassan, you could go ahead and unmute.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Is everybody hearing me? Yeah, okay. This was a welcome, brother Daurius, as always. Sparking. Sparking. It was very interesting discourse between yourself and the Amir Alpha. And I mean, the amount of things you all touched there, each of them is a topic by itself. Each of them is a program by itself. Okay. I want to pick your mind on Brother Daurius. How do you see the activities of the Black or Creole Orientalist class that in their opposition to Islam, especially in Trinidad and Tobago? I'm talking about locally.
Well, my brother, that group of African people who are plagued with hallucinatory whiteness is in fact the most intractable enemy of Islam. They were the ones who singled out the Jamaat al-Muslimin before 1990. They were the ones who insisted that Islam is an Indian religion and Africans ain't no Muslims. And they continue looking upon Islam as the threat it is.
Yeah.
Because what all Muslims have to understand is that in this order of power that we live in as a minority, anytime you watch these people and tell them that you hold allegiance to a power greater than your constitution, and if there are clauses in your constitution that abrogates and goes up against the fundamental laws that we abide by, there's only one choice open to us: to abide by the Supreme.
Yeah.
That is grave heresy.
Yeah. Because I want to take you back to my last question. Not question, but probe to the beginning of your conversation, where you pointed out that the Black urban youth is the symbol of criminality. And rapidly, post 1990, we have the emergence of the Muslim, that same criminal, but with a touch on, with Arabic names, and emerging as the gangsters, you know, taking over that role from their Christian criminal brothers. Now what is that crime by these elements in these ghettos, right, which were built to serve the industrial, the capitalist industry, you know, these ghettos, can we say that their crime have a political dimension in the sense that they are still in active opposition to the state, but in a very ignorant way. You know, it is a natural response to oppression, but without any guidance, without any structure, you know, and therefore it is difficult to stop. They don't see themselves as part of Trinidad and Tobago. That is why they will take the sand when the people drop it, when the government drop it. They have no problem with destroying government property because they don't see no nexus between themselves and society. What is your take on that?
Yes, my brother. Now, first things first. The two things we have to understand and grapple with. One is that the order of power we live under also embraces criminality, because power will never allow itself to be limited by law.
Yes.
But you see, those who hold the precept don't do the time. So that's the first thing we have to understand. This order of power that we live under, they embrace criminality. Criminality is functional to that power. All this law and order talk they like to give, that is to lock up all the we, not the self.
Yeah.
Secondly, what you notice on the ground is that you have individuals who adopt a criminal lifestyle, but they don't even understand their place in the whole game. They're ignorant of the game. So what it really is desire. Personal desire. That is all they're interested in. And what you notice about them, this desire drives them and they become nihilistic. They're plagued with nihilism. So that is why they are so destructive, because you want to know, why are you doing? What is the benefit you are getting from it? And you watch and you say, but it's minimal benefit you're getting out of it because you are no player. And you're always in the remand. So what you understand is that they have no idea of the game. They have no idea of their place in the system. And it is only me, I. And that is why they are so capable of these acts of depravity against people in their own community.
Thank you.
That is the problem.
Okay, okay. I'll leave space for somebody else to ask questions. Thank you very much. But these I think we have to bring you back. Inshallah.
All right, mashallah. So I'm taking a question from the chat now. It states, one would think that with so many Africans in positions of power and leadership nationally, who seem to be educated and woke, as in awake, it should be easy to correct these wrongs. However, by and large, it seems like we are stuck and there is no real change or transformation. What is the main hindrance to us making exponential change, despite so many persons of African descent in leadership roles? Question mark.
The problem we have, and it is not only an African problem, it is especially acute in mixed race people. Now, when you want to see nihilism in action, experience mixed race people. When you hate yourself and you are constantly seeking people you consider to be better than you and superior to you, when you are constantly seeking their applause, you lack all capacity to work out your own destiny. In my old days, I watched in this country and this Caribbean, every single idea that comes out of the university and that comes out of the politicians, that comes out of the NGOs, are all old peddled ideas that come out of white supremacist order of power. The only good idea is a white idea. And all of the ideas that they peddle to us are failed ideas, and they have no relevance to our reality. So you don't even have the capacity to understand our reality and sit down and formulate solutions to our problems. You are so dependent at the level of the idea that you can't even think to understand your own reality. That is what you call hallucinatory whiteness. Because no matter what you do, you could never be like Massa. If you watch the way power is exercised in our society, if you watch how power is exercised in the private sector, you watch how power is exercised in the public service, you watch how power is exercised on a CPEP gang, and you just observe. We still continue to exercise power in Trinidad and Tobago in 2021 as Massa did on the plantation. It must always have a boss to tell you what to do. And in the absence of the boss to tell you what to do, nothing is done. From the base level, go straight to the top. Everything is a Massa. So nobody is expected to be master of their own destiny. And when you're in looking for solutions, who you go to? Not Massa. But every solution Massa gives you is to keep you in a state of dependency, to keep you addicted. So that's our reality.
Right. Right. So I want to read out two comments in particular from the chat here. Not necessarily question, but maybe you might like to respond. You or Akinola, of course, might like to respond to it. And feel free to raise any questions to Akinola as well too. Having a lot of knowledge on the ground where this topic is concerned. Right. So Islam has failed miserably. I understand that in the prisons, it has appealed to the black criminal, low level, and members of gangs on the outside. Even on the inside, they form gangs. Any one of you like to respond to that?
Read the question one more time, please.
The person is saying Islam has failed miserably. I understand that in the prisons, it has appealed to the black criminal, low level, and members of gangs on the outside. Even on the inside, they form gangs. It's not a question, it's a statement. So I'm just saying if anybody want to share thoughts to that, that statement.
I mean, one of my initial thoughts definitely would be that the statement comes from a place of, not having an in-depth understanding on that which is the statistics. The statistics while the statistics have shown that amongst the Muslim revert, or not even some cases, not only in the Muslim revert, in he who was conceived to a Muslim family as well, that they may have been, some level of, if so to deem it, a criminal becoming somewhat, But we have a lot of statistic that points towards where Al-Islam has brought about true transformational process and has seen many rise to, the heights of society and become contributing personnels towards the development of our society and humanity. I mean, right on the discourse here right tonight, we can point to the works of Muslims that has undergone that transformation, so the thing of Islam failing miserably because of extreme minority statistics of a couple, is quite an ignorant statement. And that is my, response to that. And the statement is not a fulfillment of the truth of statistical data that has occurred, with Islam, being within the region here. I mean, the transformation that has taken place and the move forwards politically, socially, economically, within the region, within the hemisphere, has seen either one, a Muslim being at the helm of the movement that implemented or instigated such a change, or it was an actual Muslim or Islamic, idea that brought forward that kind of thing, or last but not least, an Islamically inspired idea. I mean, let's take the revolt that has taken place. Let's go through all the successful revolts that have taken place, and we would see where Islam as an idea, was the one that is the system or the ideology that pointed towards this. And I mean, even if we want to talk about the prison system, the data is there to be investigated. So I beg persons to investigate properly, before making loose, non-substantial, statements as such.
If I may, the person who posted the statement, it will be good for us to determine what are their expectations for Islam in the prison system. If we don't know what they expect of Islam in the prison system, then we would be able to understand the reason for the statement, because remember, it is a personal journey. So for example, you could have somebody doing hard time in the Grove and they have accepted Islam and they become a devout Muslim. But in Trinidad and Tobago, there is no parole system. So that change in the worldview and the life pattern and the discipline of that person who has now embraced Islam, you will not see him coming before a parole board and making his case for release under parole, he has to continue serving his sentence. So it is, what do you then expect of Islam when the prison system and the sentence pass retains control over the individual?
Okay, right. I wanna invite back Maulana Hassan to contribute towards this question in particular. And then I see Brother Musa and Brother David hand is up, so I'll take them right after, inshallah. So Maulana.
Okay, okay, thank you, brother. I mean, that is a very important statement, brother, was just know who made it, because this thing about history, you know. Okay, Black, for lack of a different term, Afro-Trinidadian did not emerge just so as head criminal elements or gangs in the prison. Okay, we've seen that now. But where did it start? Okay, now I'll take you back to the 80s, right? When the Jamaat al-Muslimin organized a program against the drug, when we had this heavy cocaine problem in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, I used to call it, you know, the piper, the reign of the piper, people thieving stove, you know, thieving gas tank, harassing their families, you know, which was terrible. And we unleash a program of closing down the blocks. Okay. Now, when these guys left the blocks, left the criminality, we had a program where they will stay in the mosque for 2 to 3 months. We give them dress, pants, top, shoes, touch, everything, and we cook every day. So there was a program, and I used to be part of the teaching aspect of the program. And brother, every day that situation was raided by the police, every single day, right? Sheppy, always my partner, used to be writing skating commentary about raising a gang of vipers, and you know, and the whole society came against that rehabilitation program and scattered the nest. And from that time, we had the emergence of the Muslim criminal, right? And we had plenty problems with that, because every person who say they are Muslim, whether they pray or not, whether they know Islam or not, whatever they do is a Black Muslim. He's a Muslim, you know, and then it grew and grew and grew until the Jamaat stumbles and have its own problems. And that, so we have right now individuals all over the place establishing masjids too. You know, in prison, some man calling himself the Amir al-Mu'minin. You know, so we have all these illusions, because trust me, brother, in the fiqh of Imam Malik, once a leader enters into prison, he's no longer an imam. Why? Because prison is an unreal place. You have flight of fantasies. Okay? I have even heard that a particular individual in jail is the best Muslim after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You could beat this kind of bullshit. You understand? Sorry, you know, you understand what I'm saying? So we have that problem. And what has happened is that the genesis came when the society did not allow us to complete that program. And of course, our own failures, lack of resources. It's a lot of things. It's easy to point a finger. These boys in gangs, these boys doing that. You know, but the genesis, where that come from? In the 80s, you heard anything about Muslim criminal? Late 80s, early 90s, you know, there's a particular point and it started. And we have to be mindful of that. Okay, it's good, it's okay to blame the youths. right? How much of us grew up under good parents and still do crap? We go out and do once in a bull. How much of us? How much of us? Your mother said, don't do this. I find myself saying things to my children now that my mother said to me. Right? So it's the same way. So it's good to blame the elders. Yeah, blame the elders, of course. We do not have a blueprint for Islam under a non-Islamic environment in the Caribbean, under Western domination, under capitalism. We don't have a blueprint. We are searching and trying to make our blueprint so that the next generation will know what to do. So the elders have made mistakes, yes. But to blame the elders for everything is nonsense. Because every individual, I cannot change a man. I can only encourage change and create an environment for change. That way Allah says in the Quran, I will end with this. Allah says in the Quran that he does not change the condition of a people, also an individual, until they change what is within themselves. So if you come a Muslim, you still want to have gold teeth, you still want to have the gold chain, you still want to have 3-4 outside girls, you still want to do this and come Juma and quote 2 hadiths where we learn the internet and quote 2 hard verses that talk about jihad and everything is jihad. You cannot control your penis, but you want to wage war to control a whole society. Come on, let's be real. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Yeah, so let me bring in the time getting a little tight now. And there's some questions in the chat. Brother Musa had his hand raised for a while. So if you could make it quick and short and responsive, quick and short as well, so it'll allow other folks to get in their question, inshallah. So Brother Musa, go ahead, please.
All right, let me see how short it is. I'm not I want to bring on the message. One of the identity problem we have, right? And some white supremacy has a way they can fill in that gap. For example,
Musa, we not hearing Musa, we're not hearing you full 100.
Okay, you hear me better?
It's coming and going.
It's coming and going. I somewhere with the identity problem that we had as the Black youth growing up, white supremacy had a way of capturing that and creating a culture for us when it comes to entertainment, right? Because I can remember in the early 2000s, it had a white rapper by the name of Eminem who was singing about shooting up a school and killing people. And a lot of congressmen in the United States came out and started talking against the music and wanted to ban the music at a big bacchanal. And one of the things that they said was that the average white child could relate it and it will influence them to do the same, right? And then let me jump to this. Then locally here in Trinidad, the church monarch promoters had a big problem where these chutney singers was only singing about domestic violence and drinking alcohol. And then they say that it was affecting the young Indian child and they wanted to ban music from the chutney monarch promoting that. But yet still in Trinidad, we have here today where DJs jump who in the 40s and 50s jumping and promoting gunman music. So, but that's my point. I don't know if you could give my answer on that. I'm gonna cut right there.
Brother Daurius Akinola, any comments on that?
But, yeah.
I mean, certainly, culture, when, as you say, Brother Musa, rightfully, when there is absence of culture, there is absence of knowledge of self. That which is the system that is, as we mentioned earlier, already socially engineered, would present one with culture and present one with a knowledge of self that is beneficial towards the formation of that system that as they would want it to see, to allow corporate capitalism to foster. Because what Massa knows is that we're not going nowhere with that nonsense. That nonsense is taking us nowhere, and that type of culture will just keep us where we are, and not just keep us where we are, but sink us deeper into the mess. So the acceptance of that, definitely speaks towards the promotion of corporate capitalism, or aligning the ducks, or aligning the actors, or placing the players in the inshallah.
All right. Let me allow Dr. David to come on, please, and contribute, inshallah.
Yes, Salam Alaikum. Thanks very much.
Salam.
So very, very quickly, Dr. Daurius Figueira, thank you, as I put a message in the chat, for your service over more than 3 decades of opening people's minds on this matter. And also thanks for all the assistance that you would have given indirectly in my own research coming up, again, over the last 30 years. And to see you still here consistent is a blessing. But I just wanted to very, very, very quickly respond to the individual who said that Islam had failed. And I want to thank Maulana Hassan for a perfect answer. Because this question, and to me, it's a teaching moment for all of us. And I'm so glad that that statement was made. Because this reminds me of an incident that took place, it would have been about 15, 20 years ago, when at the Guantanamo Bay prison camp in Cuba, one of the Americans had flushed a copy of the Holy Quran down a toilet. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told us when that happened, he said, hold it, be cautious. He said the reason they did that, and the reason that they draw cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the reason that they make offensive statements is so that we will react. Then they will film us reacting, and then they'll put it on television and say, here is Islam. So Brother Farrakhan had told us, take this as an opportunity to explain the magnificence, the law, the justice, and the beauty contained in the philosophy of the Holy Quran. And so when questions like that are asked, we have to be so careful that we're not triggered off, because we all know that's just completely not true. But we have to keep our composure, not lose our cool, and take the opportunity to present some facts. And I'll just say to that I know much more, at least on a ratio of 10 to 1, or maybe even 50 to 1, more Muslims who used to take drugs or sell drugs, who embraced Islam and then stopped taking drugs or selling drugs, than those who came into Islam and started taking drugs or selling drugs. I know much more people who, before they were in Islam, used to drink, smoke, gamble, cuss, abuse women, commit crimes, even kill, who came into Islam and completely cut out that life. And when it comes to reform, discipline, cleaning up, that's our whole record. So maybe we weren't going to talk about that this evening, but that question being raised has given the opportunity to shine a light. That is what Islam is all about, rehabilitation. How many people who were in trouble, down in the ditch, come out of prison? And so what is wrong if a philosophy appeals to people in the prison? That's good. But what happens to them after they embrace the philosophy? And there's no one who has truly and sincerely embraced the teachings of the Holy Quran, whose life has deteriorated and who has become more of a menace to society. Right? So I pray that the person who asked that question, assuming that it was done in sincerity, that they just get a little bit more information about what they're saying there, because Islam is all about rehabilitation. Everywhere that we go, all of our people that we interact with, those are the results that we have. That's what Islam does, in particular in the African community. So thanks a lot once again for the opportunity just to respond there. I'm so grateful for Malana Hassan Anabwele's response to that. Again, it's an opportunity. We could have gotten angry and upset and lost our cool, but no, we have to take the opportunity to teach. So great job as well, Brother Akinola and Brother Alpha, and to everyone on. That was magnificent last week. Such a great forum every Friday to look forward to. And my only concern is that, to me, these programs need to be available for afterwards, for rewind, because in every single social media presentation, there are always more views afterwards than during. So if you have 100 people live and it's posted, you'll get at least 1,000 views within the next 4 or 5 days. And I mean, so much valuable information has been shared this evening from Dr. Daurius Figueira and for the weeks that have gone by. So, I mean, anything that I could do or that we could do to help in that regard as well, we're open. But thanks so much. And of course, tomorrow we have African Expo number 8 at the Kwame Ture Center. So anyone who's around, please feel free to pass in. It's one love, one family. Take care. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks a lot.
Walaikum salam. Thank you very much, Dr. D. Love it, love it, love it. Yes. So I want to take the final question, and let's flip the script a bit. There's someone asking the chat there, and this will be the final question for the evening, because it's already 8:30. But thanks for staying with us also. She says, Mr. Sennon, what words do you have for a new Muslim coming up in the faith?
Islam in itself presents the final completion of a way of life ordained by God, ordained by Allah, the creator of everything himself. He said in Al-Quran, this day I have completed my favor upon you and chosen for you Al-Islam as your way of life. So Al-Islam presents itself as a holistic way of life for the benefit of all of mankind. So my advice is that one must understand Islam in that holistic nature and understand Islam as that mechanism that brings purification, that brings excellence, that brings completion to who you are. So Al-Islam does not encourage one to stray away from self and one's identity, or one's tribe, or one's belonging, but rather the holistic nature of this perfected system brings about a perfection or a completion to that which you are. So my advice to a new Muslim is to understand Islam from that broad space. And indeed, one will be on a road of self-awareness, which self-awareness must come with awareness and appreciation of thy Lord. And definitely this would, lead towards so much other things in terms of internal self-excellence and being a contributor towards the development of humanity at large.
MashaAllah. I seen some more questions on the chat there, but I'm afraid, respectful of people's time, I want to go on and on, because we can easily sit here till 10 o'clock. So at this time, let me just allow our beloved guest, Brother Daurius, to give his closing remarks. And then we would, get to that wrap in the program. So Brother Daurius, over to you. Give us your closing remarks, inshallah.
What we have to be ever mindful of is that as Muslims, we are called upon to provide a clear alternative to what exists via our daily life. So our daily life have to be shining lights. And in order for us to have daily lives that are shining lights, we have to be immersed in the Quran, internalize the Quran, act upon it, and be ever mindful of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank you.
Thank you. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khairan. Any closing remarks from you, Akinola?
Not to repeat what the brother has said, but more to support it. We must make ourselves that agent of change. That change that we would like to see, we within ourselves must be that change. And within being that change, by osmosis, that change could be reflected, in others around us. So, my closing remarks is that, as we continue with this who am I discourse, as we move into the future now, that we become agents of change and we be that change that we want to see, and become contributing factors towards the development of this society, development of our people, development of the nation, development of the region, and of course, the development of, all of mankind at large, which, what Islam in itself was placed or completed to do. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. All right, mashallah, jazakallah khairan, brothers, both brothers, for taking your time to contribute on this topic. Of course, jazakallah khairan for all the participants as well, who would have really added to the discourse. With all the participants, we can't have a thorough discussion, whether it may be pros and cons, and whether it may be statements that we like or we may not like. We have to really still keep the fire burning. So alhamdulillah, we have come more or less to the end of the official discussion this evening. I wanted to respond to something that Brother David would have said as well too, which quite at least in terms of views after the program. So that's to remind folks, we are live on Facebook right now on the Institute for Life Facebook page. And we do post up these recordings on YouTube as well. The YouTube page is Institute for Life-IFL. So you can go there, search it, share it with somebody who may have missed it. Share the Facebook Live as well. If you all are part of any communities that, that take part in such discussions, such conscious discussions, feel free to share it in those groups, etc., etc. So at this time, I will basically come to the end by doing a closing dua, and then I'll invite folks to stay on to just get a quick photo, virtual photo snapshot of all who's present, inshallah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربي اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brother.